Hello everyone, thank you for joining us. Today the Ghana Statistical Service is releasing the Consumer Price Index and inflation figures for December 2025. These numbers are not just statistics. They describe what families feel at the market, what businesses face when they plan, and what policymakers rely on to make decisions that affect every Ghanaian. Let me begin with the headline result. In December 2025, Ghana's year-on-year inflation rate fell to 5.4%. Year-on-year inflation compares prices today with prices 1 year ago. Simply put, it tells us how much more or less it costs to live today than it did 12 months earlier. This result matters. Inflation has now fallen for 12 consecutive months, dropping sharply from 23.8% in December 2024 to 5.4% in December 2025. That is an 18.4 percentage point reduction in 1 year and the lowest inflation rate since the CPI was rebased in 2021. What this signals is clear. Ghana has moved from a period of intense price pressure to one of growing price stability. Now, let us look at what happened within the month. Month on month, inflation measures price changes from 1 month to the next. Between November and December 2025, inflation was 0.9%. Prices rose slightly during the month, but the broader trend remains firmly downward. This is what stabilization looks like. Small movements month to month, without the sharp spikes we experienced in the past. Let me now break the numbers down, starting with food and non-food prices. Food inflation fell to 4.9% in December 2025, down from 6.6% in November 2025, and far below the 27.8% in December last year. This is a 22.9 percentage point decline in food inflation over the 12 months. This is especially important because food accounts for about 43% of household spending. Families are feeling real relief. That said, food prices still rose 1.1% between November and December 2025, reminding us that vigilance is still necessary. Non-food inflation also eased, falling to 5.8% in December 2025 from 6.1% in November 2025, and down significantly from 20.3% a year earlier. Month on month, non-food prices rose by 0.6%, reflecting moderate but manageable pressures. Looking at goods and services tells us even more. Inflation for goods declined to 5.8%, down from 7.3% in November and 23.1% in December 2024. Goods make up nearly 3/4 of the CPI basket, so this slowdown matters where it counts the most. Goods prices rose 0.8% over the month, but at a much calmer pace than before. Services inflation rose slightly to 4.5% in December, up from 3.8% in November, but still lower than its level of 15.4% in December 2024. Month on month, services prices increased by 0.9%. Let me now turn to locally produced and imported items. Inflation for locally produced items declined to 5.9% in December 2025, down from 6.8% in November 2025, and 26.4% a year earlier. That is a 20.5 percentage point reduction in 1 year. Inflation for imported items also fell, reaching 4.3%, down from 5.0% in November and 18.0% in December 2024. This tells us that easing pressures are coming from both domestic supply and imports. However, inflation is not the same everywhere. Regionally, disparities remain. the Eastern region recorded the highest inflation at 11.2%, while the Savannah region recorded the lowest at minus 1.2%. Some regions saw prices rise month to month, while others experienced declines. These differences reflect variations in supply chains, transport costs, and market access across the country. Let me briefly explain contributions to inflation. When we talk about contribution, we are asking a simple question. How much does a particular item push inflation up or pull it down based on how important it is in the household spending? In December 2025, 5 items, including charcoal, green plantain, smoked herrings, cinema and cultural services, and ginger, contributed over 40% of overall inflation. At the same time, 5 items, such as garden eggs, kontomire, fried fish, pawpaw, and cabbage, recorded sharp price declines, together pulling inflation down by 8%. Without these price drops, inflation would have been higher. So, what are the key drivers? They include continued declines in food and non-food inflation, easing pressures on both locally produced and imported items, slower goods inflation, rising but contained services costs, and persistent regional differences. So what does this mean going forward? For government, this is a moment to stay disciplined, protect food supply chains, and close regional gaps through better storage, irrigation, and transport systems. For businesses, lower inflation creates room to invest, improve efficiency, strengthen local sourcing, and share cost savings with customers. For households, falling inflation brings something powerful: predictability. Families can plan school fees, rent, and food purchases with less fear of sudden price shocks. It is an opportunity to budget carefully, save where possible, and make informed choices. Before I close, let me express my sincere appreciation to the market players who share price information with us, our market readers across the country, and the dedicated staff of the Ghana Statistical Service. Your commitment is the foundation of statistics that Ghanaians can trust. Let me end with this assurance. The Ghana Statistical Service remains fully committed to providing timely, accurate, relevant, and credible statistics to support evidence-based decision-making for national development. We'll continue to improve how we measure, analyze, and communicate inflation so that every Ghanaian understands not just the numbers, but what they mean for everyday life. Thank you very much.